Hey, this is CANDIA RAQUEL, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is free from inhibition and full of self-expression. Make sure to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox by subscribing on my website, which is candiaraquel, my name.com, www.candiaraquel. And today we have a very special guest. This is Dr. Nazanin Moali, and she's a psychologist, she's a consultant. I know she's also a researcher, a, a real scientist, and she's also the host of the Sexology Podcast. I am very happy to have you here, Dr. Nazanin.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I love your show and I appreciate the work that you're doing because prioritizing pleasure, I feel it's a movement and it's a revolution. And I'm glad that you're leaning into this conversation.
Thank you so much. So I am very curious to know what are your views about how people is challenged nowadays to connect with pleasure.
Well, we live in a high paced, high pressure society. People are constantly stressed out. We have chronic stress, and it's okay at times to experience stress. Stress is part of life, but if we don't have spaces to slow down and regulate ourselves and nervous system, that leads to disconnection from our body, right? Evolution or based on evolution or science, we're not built to be constantly in the stress of chronic place of chronic stress. Therefore, that causes us to not be living life through our body and sexual experience and pleasure, the sex that's connected to eroticism and the experiences people like to have often when they come to sex therapy is like they want to have this juicy, exciting, fulfilling sexual experiences that only happens when we are inside our body. And oftentimes, the other issue with pleasure is that we know one of the easiest ways that people can enhance pleasure is practicing mindfulness. When mindfulness is a practice of slowing down. So oftentimes people think about, okay, I have to take this medication. What is the best, newest medication or loop that helps with increasing arousal, which in reality is like the practice of slowing down. And when we are in our body, we will be able to experience more pleasure, which we will definitely talk about. But because of how unpracticed we are, how we are wired ourselves for years and years to think about pleasure as something that we have to buy or earn, it's so hard for people to be able to slow down because they're scared what's going to show up.
Yes, it's like challenging to get into something so natural as a sensual state to welcome pleasure because we are facing this contradiction of going fast and furious and wanting to achieve more and more and more and more and never feeling like satiated. And all of that with the promise of pleasure, with the promise of satisfaction. I think as a society, we have very well covered the aspect of desire because we are very driven, but we haven't cultivated nor created like proper spaces, external and internal spaces for the counterpart. That is the satisfaction, the moment of experiencing the wish fulfilled for which you worked so hard. Like how many people like get to the 10K, then the 100K, then the 1 million, and then the 10 million, and they they achieve what they desired, but they never get to feel the pleasure of the achievement because I don't know why. I don't know why. It would seem to me that perhaps we have a certain desire that we envision with our mind, but the realm of satisfaction and pleasure is all about our body and has a different tempo and rhythm. Because, like you say, to practice mindfulness is is the key to connect to pleasure, but it takes to slow down. So it's like counterintuitive. Like we are going forward with our full power, and then slowing down, I don't know, feels like even like waste of time or being lazy or unproductive. What are the main like beliefs that you know these people, your clients, having in regards to creating this mindfulness to enjoy?
There's so many different beliefs. One is like slowing down is a form of laziness, right? Like the society values, you gotta constantly produce and deliver. So we're misinformed that sexual experiences, for example, or pleasure is something that is an experience, right? You were talking about if you win lottery, what people are kind of building wealth or win lottery and they're not happy because we're not in our bodies and we don't experience the contentment. Emotions are lived experiences inside our body. So we are misinformed about what creates pleasure, what helps people to be content. They think about it's a work of achieving instead of the work of experiencing. And you talked about why people are not prioritizing it, why they're not investing in it. Because sometimes we have so many emotions present that we override for years and years that it's just hard for us to sit with those emotions. At times, people kind of see that use even sex as a way of muting those emotions, whether it's sadness, frustration, anxiety. Because when we slow down, it's not going to only be pleasant experiences. It's going to be all types of experiences, but those are also data points. The other mistake that I see people have is they think about they have to mute their negative, quote unquote, negative emotions, right? That like, oh, these are bad. But in the pursuit of getting rid of the sadness, grief, anxiety, they lose the range of the emotions, right? That then they're no longer feeling things. You're just numb and you're working to kind of numb the emotion. You're using sex to numb the emotion. And that is, as you talked about it, it's very dissatisfying. That's why that some people think about, oh my God, I work so much, I earn so much. Why am I so dissatisfied? Or I'm having sex, a lot of sex, but I feel so lonely. And that's why it's important for people to know that pleasure is the experience, and in order for you to be able to have those experiences, you have to learn the practice of being present in your body and practice mindfulness.
Wow. Yeah, sex can be used as a way to mute emotions. So even what we do in order to get into pleasure can be counterproductive, can lead us astray. And now I have the feeling that it's like opening the Pandora's box. You open yourself, like if you want to experience pleasure, you have to be open for it to emerge. You have to slow down, be mindful, but know that maybe what comes forth is not pleasure, but a lot of emotions that maybe you tried to numb down, and they are like coming to the surface to be processed. And this is like a whole different approach to relating to oneself and to desire, because like you say, pleasure is not a matter of achieving, but a matter of experiencing. And we are very good at doing, like, okay, give me a practice, 10 steps, and then we want to frame everything. And then like it's like challenging not to fall into the trap of doing what we always do, because there's a bunch of videos for having, I don't know, 20 orgasms in a row, or for men to not to ejaculate, or for people to lose weight and eat whatever they want, like, and you see them eating like these huge tomahawk steaks with bacon and stuff, or the other opposite, like, okay, just juices from all the fruits, but it's like within this same frame of achieving, like, okay, here we go, let's count the orgasms. And it's like, that's exactly not how to do it. Because, I mean, great if you have thousands of orgasms, but if you are going, if you are trying to address pleasure in that way, in that frame way, you are only like enhancing the limit. I mean, we become stronger in what we practice. We create habits. So it's very interesting how sex can become an addiction, and everything that brings a certain kind of pleasure, for example, binge eating or bulimia or any addiction, but at the end there's less pleasure and more like mm, the anxious experience of addiction. So yeah, what is a good tip to become aware of when are we falling to the other side? Like, okay, I want to be mindful and I want to experience pleasure, but what's the line that says, like, okay, this is becoming a strategy to numbify myself?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with at times wanting to use distraction to manage emotions, right? It's a form of survival. Like when we are in a very difficult situation, the distraction, whether it's sex, food, music, Netflix, it can help us to surpass that moment. But it's helpful to think about, am I using it as only a strategy, or I have other tools in the toolbox? What I encourage people to do is to start with doing maybe 2 minutes of mindfulness exercises every day. Or I have clients that they do 1 minute, right? When you're watching your hand, like every kind of like part of the day, that's the time you're tuning in with yourself, with your emotion, what's present for me. And then if you have this moments of kind of like when you tap into the emotion and checking with yourself, you notice that there are a wealth of emotion that you haven't been paying attention to, like there's sadness, anxiety. Then that gives you a tip that we're not living in a state of being present. And it is something that you cannot perfect it. It's more of practicing it. And I think with doing it every day, whether you're doing 5 minutes at the beginning of the day or as you're doing washing your hand, uh, that can help you to know where you are. I think with sexual experiences specifically, when you're thinking about those things, I notice lots of people with low satisfaction, right? They have sexual experiences, but they feel sex is not as satisfying for them. I think the issue then becomes when they think about they have to add a medication, or it's an issue of using a toy or something else, versus thinking about, am I truly present when I have sex? So am I only in my fantasies and disconnected from the partner, or I am present. So because when we are present, then that can turn to such a satisfying sexual experiences because of the experience of co-regulation with our partner. Like one thing that happens when we are in the stress, kind of high stress state all the time, we are at this place of fight and flight. And it's just like so hard to be relational. But this great sex that people have, I often hear from my clients, is when they feel connected with their partners. And that feels very deeply satisfying because you are co regulating your nervous system. And great sex, again, it's about this embodied experience, and you will learn to be tap into your body. I can talk about exercises that individual and couples do, but that's what comes to mind when you mention that.
I love it to almost stop to smell the roses. Like
Mm.
along our day, use a moment that you take for washing your hands to really be there, washing your hands. Like there's no way you can have your phone in the hand when you are. That's a good one because people sometimes I have been guilty of, but it seems that it's pretty common for people to take the phone to the bathroom. So like we don't even have like spaces of self-intimacy. So I love like it's simple, like take that 1 minute of washing your hands to be there, washing your hands and like check in. How am I feeling? What's happening for me? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling anxious? And creating a practice of living in the present. And this is like a super realistic approach because it's like I am not asking you to sit for 3 hours in a row like a Tibetan monk in a cave and let go of your material life. No, no, no. It's like here now with what you have, 1 minute, 2 minutes, check in and use this to become more curious on where are you when you are on intimacy, on sex, like having sex, like are you really with your partner or are you in your fantasy world or I don't know if you're not having such a great time as a woman, maybe you are just counting the cracks in the ceiling. So
Mm.
yeah, practicing being connected with yourself, being intimate with yourself so you can connect with your partner and that will bring you to more fulfilling sexual experiences which puts pleasure into the equation because pleasure takes this slowing down of okay, like I think it's a good bargain to put the world aside, the duties, the emergencies, while you are washing your hands. Like your world is not gonna fall apart if you take that little pause. So instead of using every chance we have to run away from the moment and our sensations, to use that in order to come in touch, which brings me to fear. Like I I can't even explain it, but suddenly I felt like a kind of I don't know, like a void or like an emptiness and fear of just like being there and noticing anxiety and sadness because I don't want to feel bad even if I feel bad. And then it makes sense to run for the coffee machine and the cookies next by and stuff myself with something that feels good even though it's like a numbifying pleasure. Like yeah, I'm gonna feel good but on the surface it's like I'm just gonna sugarcoat my sadness so then like it's not real pleasure. So what do you think of the fear of feeling?
Mm. I absolutely understand and relate to that, right? No one wants to feel pain or suffering. But what happens in reality when we are coping with distraction, whether it's food, coffee, sex, what we're doing, we're just pushing away the emotions. Like emotions are like this ball we have in a pool. When we're pressing down, they're going to press back up. There's no way of getting rid of those emotions by ignoring them, right? They're just going to be right there after the sex, after the cookie. You just delayed it, and they can at times get more powerful. But when we're slowing down and tuning into the kind of what is happening for me in this moment, you will be able to not engage with kind of in that toxic back and forth between those negative emotions, and you feel the emotions. Like I know that in the current field of psychology, somatic experiencing is very powerful. Of when you let yourself feel the emotion, it will pass, but you need to feel it. That's there's no other way. And with using coping strategies, you're just like coping strategies that are like distraction. You're just delaying it.
Yeah, coping mechanisms only delay emotions. So, do you think that this tendency to avoid suffering is a cause of addiction? Like the wanting, is it addiction a way, like, yeah, a maladaptive way to escape, or it has like a deeper cause?
Well, for many people, it's escape, right? It's not about like there are some people that are able to use some substances, even alcohol, right? Socially, and for some people, they get addicted. And what is the difference is when we use those substances as a way of the coping and the only coping strategy we have, that becomes our primary relationship, and we get disconnected from world. One of the saying that Dr. Gabor Mate has that I love, that says addiction is a disease of disconnection, right? Like we are not connected with the world, we're not connected with our emotions, and we're trying to cope. Sometimes, if I'm honest with you, with the best ability that we have, best tool that we have. Many people have unresolved trauma. And growing up, we were taught that, oh, just like don't think about it. It's like such a common thing we hear, or get over it, right? Like when these things are really painful in physiological level and psychological level, and we're trying to cope with it through numbing. And that's what it is. Like whether it's substances, whether it's food, whether it's sex, and these things can let people help people to live not the best life that they you can have, but it helps you to live. And that's why that I think I agree with you. It can be a form of avoiding feeling the difficult emotions when we don't have the tools. And sometimes, kind of going back to our conversation, people think about the I need this like super fancy tools. Like yes, maybe if you have a complex trauma, you need therapy and support. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes the tool is as easy as practicing mindfulness and let yourself feel the emotions. And through kind of not engaging with that, you will be able to get through those difficult emotions.
Wow. So the tool, it can be as easy as practicing mindfulness and feeling it all without engaging in that emotions, in those emotions. Yeah, because a way to engage in those emotions is like, well, to kick a door and go crazy and scream at everyone. If you're angry, another one could be like just sink your sorrows in alcohol or stuff them with donuts or numb them with sex, and they won't go away. But if you just stay there, they will go away. And is it possible to have contradictory emotions at the same time? Like, okay, I am kind of feeling anxious, but I don't know, optimist. For example, when you are practicing uh, something new with your beloved on intimacy, or you're going on a date with someone, is it possible to have like a negative emotion and a positive, or they cancel each other out?
Well, definitely, it's very common for people to have complex emotions, right? If we're really slowing down, we get to see the nuances of our emotions, right? Like, even think about you're starting a new relationship when you, uh, after passing someone you love, right? Like, loss of like someone that you love. You can imagine this is very exciting. And I also feel grief because they're closing a door on that relationship. And all emotions are acceptable. There's nothing, no wrong emotion. I think the idea is just like tuning in, seeing what's present for you in your body. How does it feel like? What does it feel like? And sometimes also, if there's an emotion that we don't want in a way, right? Like we feel like, oh, I have this chronic stress, I have this chronic sadness that's like as much as I'm sitting with it, it just doesn't pass. That's also a data point, right? That like we're not living a life based on the values that we have. So that's that. I think like the issue is not the emotion or kind of numbing that emotion. The problem is that then the context is not working for us, and it's like a really good friend tell us this emotion that we need to make adjustments.
We need to make adjustments. Okay. So it's like using like an inner like dial to adjust. Like, okay, this is the situation, the overall situation that I'm going through, like changes in my life, but I can, this other situation makes me feel like this, and it's like almost becoming more spacious and more flexible to navigate different states. And that makes sense with what we mentioned earlier on just letting the emotion pass, letting the emotion to be like processed and metabolized in your body instead of engaging and reacting to that, trying to numb it down, which then brings us to a space of more with a better disposition to engage with pleasure. So what is I don't know, a good advice or a quick practice that you could share with the sensualists that are listening to us for a more fulfilling, slow paced, sensual sexual sexuality?
Well, there are a number of different things that people can do. I just mentioned two if you are alone, like you're doing it without partner, and one if you're doing it with a partner. One of the challenges that many couples that they come to me, they feel that they don't have the kind of space or mental capacity to have sex. Like life is busy, sex is something else, it's on our chores, and I'm just like, it's hard for me to transition. Like I hear from a lot of people, or even mothers that say, I'm touched out. It's just like night, I cannot have sex. What I recommend people to do is to think about sex as a container. So for the begin, this is an invitation I have for the beginning. Even before removing your clothing, it's really helpful to do this practice, which I talk about is a tantric practice that I learned. Sitting in front of your partner, clothing on, face to face, gazing on each other's eyes. Put your hand on your partner's chest, and they put their hand on your chest, and you're synchronizing your breathing for like 5 to 10 rounds. So when your partner inhale, you inhale. When they exhale, you exhale. So that helps with co-regulation of nervous system and calming down. And the idea is not necessarily build arousal. The idea is to slow down the nervous system, slow down and kind of being connected with the partner. Because many times people feel that when their partners have sex, they don't see them. But like we're doing this brief exercise at the beginning before starting the foreplay, that can be very powerful. The other piece that I recommend people that are single or they want to kind of practice alone is mindful shower exercises. So when you're doing kind of taking a shower, kind of paying attention to the sensation, what's present, what's the temperature of water, what is the smell that you're kind of feeling, and at end of the shower, use it as a guided. It could be self pleasure. It could be 5 minutes of you just tuning into the pressure on your hand, starting from your face, caressing. What does it feel like? With exploring different types of sensation in your body. I have people even they end up with masturbating, doing the mindful masturbation at the end of the shower. But the idea is not necessarily climaxing. The idea is kind of really tuning into what do I feel in my body and what's present. Kind of slow sexual experiences, it's more about, as we talked about, slowing down. And these are just the practice of slowing down and being able to focus on your lived experiences versus like this idea of sex is something that I do, or sensuality and sexuality is something that I have to do instead of feel.
Love it. To see sex and sensuality and pleasure not as a chore, like not another item to complete in your to-do list and feel that you have achieved something, but to make it just like a just a container for being, for just noticing what's there. And I love that. Yeah, you, in the solo practice you can like go to climax, but like that's a possibility, so if so happens, but it's not the goal. Same as the partnered experience in the beginning, that it's even being fully clothed and just taking a moment for connecting and co-regulating the nervous system. And I love this concept of co-regulating because it's very bonding. Like I wasn't aware that I have done that in my life before, and like, wow, I was co-regulating with my beloved. And is that like, okay, it's not that we have to do something in order to get something, so we are like a worthy couple or a successful couple or whatever. Like we are just meeting here and we are creating this container. And I love that the practice is to create the container, because then pleasure can happen as it is. It's free and it's all over the place, and it's sometimes crazy and it takes you to unexpected places, and sometimes actually not much happens, but the container brings like a safe context that at the same time gives like a certainty to the mind, to our rational thinking and achieving and overachieving personality, that okay, we have this covered, we have this context, and it can be not 3 hours and not a chore, but just like there's this structure, almost like, okay, there's this river bank of rocks created that funnels and channels what it is to arouse. If you go further into arousal, that is the river of pleasure and delight. So these are very, very practical and very, very gentle practices. Really appreciate this sharing, Dr. Nazanin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
So tell us, how can we get in touch with you and learn more what you're doing?
Well, people can find my podcast called Sexology Podcast and iTunes, wherever they're listening or seeing this podcast. As of now, I have more than 400 episodes, and every week on Tuesday, we talk about science of sex and pleasure, different range of different topics. And also, people can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Sexology Podcast, and I would be happy and delighted to connect with your listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you. And also, thank you, Sensualists, for being here. Go follow Dr. Nazanin Moali on IG, on her handle Sexology Podcast, and also tune into the podcast in every platform every Tuesday, right?
Yeah, yeah, great memory every Tuesday.
Yeah, great. Also, if you haven't already, go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality on my website, which is candiaraquel.com, www.candiaraquel.com. Until next time, remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.